You're a Bulgarian soldier. You just surrendered. The battle is over. Your emperor escaped. You didn't. Byzantine guards march you into a field with 14,999 other men. You're divided into groups of 100. Then the order comes. Soldiers hold down the first man. A Byzantine officer approaches with a heated blade. He presses it into the prisoner's eyes. First the left, then the right. The screaming starts. It doesn't stop. This happens 99 times per group. The 100th man keeps one eye, just enough to lead the other 99 home. When it's over, 15,000 soldiers stumble across the mountains, blind, holding on to each other, guided by 150 men who can barely see. They walk for days, until they reach their emperor. Tsar Samuel sees them coming.
Thousands of his warriors, the men he led into battle, now groping in darkness. Blood dried on their faces, empty sockets where their eyes used to be. He collapses. 2 days later, he's dead. This is what the Byzantine Empire did to Bulgaria in 1014, and today I'm going to tell you why. The year is 1014. The Byzantine Empire and Bulgaria have been at war for almost 50 years. This isn't just any war, it's personal. In 986, a young Byzantine emperor named Basil II led his first campaign against Bulgaria. He was 28 years old, arrogant, certain of victory. The Bulgarians ambushed him at the gates of Trajan. They slaughtered his army. Basil barely escaped with his life. For the next 28 years, Basil II never forgot that humiliation.
He never stopped fighting. He invaded Bulgaria year after year, burning villages, destroying crops, starving the population. The Byzantine historian John Scalitzes wrote, "The Emperor Basil continued to invade Bulgaria each year and destroy and devastate everything in his way. But the Bulgarians wouldn't break. Their emperor, Samuel, kept fighting. He knew he couldn't defeat Basil in open battle, so he built walls, fortified mountain passes, made every Byzantine invasion cost blood. By 1014, both emperors were old men. Basil was 56. Samuel was even older. They had spent their entire adult lives trying to destroy each other. That summer, Basil launched what he hoped would be the final campaign. Samuel knew Basil was coming.
The Byzantines always used the same route, through the valley of the Strumitsa River, where the mountains created a natural passage into Bulgaria. So Samuel blocked it. His men built a massive wooden wall across the valley near the village of Kleidion. Towers, ditches, fortifications, thousands of soldiers guarding every approach. When Basil's army arrived, they couldn't break through. For days, the Byzantines threw themselves at the wall. Bulgarian defenders cut them down. Samuel thought he had won. He was wrong. One of Basil's generals, Nikephoros Siphius, found a path through the mountains. On July 29, 1014, he led his troops around the Bulgarian defenses and attacked from behind. The Bulgarians were trapped, wall in front, Byzantine army behind. Samuel escaped with a small group, but his army, 15,000 men, surrendered. And that's when the horror began. Why didn't Basil just execute them or enslave them? That's what armies usually did with prisoners. But Basil had something else in mind. See, in Byzantine law, blinding was the standard punishment for rebels and traitors. And from Constantinople's perspective, the Bulgarians weren't a foreign nation. They were subjects of the empire who refused to submit. Bulgaria had been conquered before, in 971. The Byzantine emperor at the time had paraded the Bulgarian Tsar through Constantinople, stripped him of his crown, and declared Bulgaria part of the empire. The Bulgarians disagreed. They revolted. For 43 years, they fought for independence. To Basil, these weren't prisoners of war. They were rebels, and rebels were punished with blinding. But there was another reason, something more personal. During the battle, Basil's favorite general, Theophylactus Botaniatus, was killed. Some accounts say Samuel's own son ran him through with a spear. Basil didn't just want victory. He wanted revenge. So he gave the order. The blinding took days, maybe weeks.
No historical source tells us exactly how long. 15,000 men, one at a time. They used heated blades or metal rods. The heat cauterized the wound, preventing death from blood loss. These men weren't meant to die. They were meant to suffer and to send a message.
Every 100 men, one was spared, partially. He kept a single eye so he could guide the others home. 150 guides, 14,850 completely blind. Think about the logistics, the organization, the cold efficiency required to mutilate that many human beings. This wasn't a massacre. Massacres are fast. This was a production line of cruelty. When it was done, Basil sent them walking, back to their emperor, back to Samuel. Samuel was in Prespa when they arrived. He had escaped the battle, but he knew his army was captured. He was waiting for news. Then he saw them coming over the hills, thousands of figures, stumbling, holding on to each other, moving slowly, too slowly. As they got closer, he understood.
The Byzantine chronicler Skylitzes wrote, "When he saw them arriving in such numbers and the state they were in, he lacked the moral fortitude to endure the shock. Fainting and darkness came upon him, and he fell to the ground. Samuel collapsed. He may have had a stroke or a heart attack. The sources aren't clear. 2 days later, on October 6, 1014, he was dead. The man who had resisted Byzantium for decades, who had built an empire stretching from the Adriatic to the Black Sea, who had humiliated Basil II at the gates of Trajan, that man died not from a blade, but from seeing what was done to his soldiers. Basil had found a way to kill Samuel without touching him. After Samuel's death, Bulgaria fell apart."
His son, Gavril Radomir, was murdered by his own cousin within a year. The cousin, Ivan Vladislav, was killed in battle in 1018. 4 years after the blinding, Bulgaria ceased to exist as an independent state. It became a Byzantine province. It would stay that way for over 150 years. Basil II earned a new title, Boulgaroktonos, the Bulgar-Slayer. He ruled for 11 more years. When he died in 1025, the Byzantine Empire was at its greatest territorial extent in centuries. His borders stretched from the Adriatic to the Euphrates. History calls him one of Byzantine's greatest emperors. In Sofia, Bulgaria, there's a monument today. 2, actually. One shows Tsar Samuel. His eyes are enormous, intense, staring. Across the street, there's another statue, a group of blinded soldiers, groping forward, leaning on each other. They face each other, the emperor who couldn't save them, and the men who came home without their eyes. Even now, Samuel has to look at what was done to his soldiers, every day, forever. Here's what I keep thinking about. The Byzantines considered themselves the most civilized people on earth, the heirs of Rome, defenders of Christianity, keepers of law and learning. And they blinded 15,000 men, methodically, legally, according to their own laws about rebels. That's the thing about empires. They don't see themselves as brutal. They see themselves as orderly, as justified, as doing what must be done. The men who heated those blades weren't monsters. They were soldiers following orders. The empire that gave those orders wasn't evil. It was, by its own standards, simply enforcing its laws. Basil II went to church. He carried an icon of the Virgin Mary into battle. He believed he was doing God's work. And then he blinded 15,000 men and sent them walking home to die. That's what power looks like when it stops seeing people as human, when it sees them as rebels, as problems to be solved, as messages to be sent. The Bulgarians kept fighting for independence. Eventually, in 1185, they succeeded. The Second Bulgarian Empire lasted until the Ottomans came. But those 15,000 men, they lived the rest of their lives in darkness, some for years, some for decades, every day waking up and remembering what they'd lost. Their emperor died from seeing them. They had to keep living.